a soulful mentor. And for 25 years, a little more, I worked as a self-employed strategic marketing consultant in the global steel and metals industry. Talking about being in a very male-dominated industry, like Rachel mentioned, immediately related to that. I actually reached a level where many of the world's largest steel producers were my clients. And I did that for a long time, very internationally, working all over the world, loved what I did. And then I reached a point where it just didn't agree with me anymore. I had changed, and again, when you talked about, like that little voice that's telling you that what you should be doing, and you resist that for a while, and then you just have to face it. So that was kind of my situation too, and I knew that I needed to go into a different field. And in parallel with my work as a consultant in the steel industry, I've been involved for just as long in the world of healing and spirituality. I'm one of these people that's constantly trying to become a better version of myself, more healed version of myself. So I've been on a lifelong healing journey, and I wanted to combine these two worlds into what I'm doing today, soulful mentoring. So I'm going to sit down now. I'll start by saying that life can be a bit bumpy sometimes, and mine certainly has been. 20 years ago, I found myself recovering from divorce and complete financial ruin as a single mother of two beautiful children, and tragically, not long after that, also as the sole provider. The magnitude of sole responsibility for my family and for our financial survival was a lot to take in, and I did go through extreme stress and anxiety. As I mentioned, I've been on a spiritual path and healing journey most of my life, and now my regular yoga and meditation practice became my lifeline. And it was on my yoga mat that I connected deeply with my inner guidance and soul. And it was on my yoga mat that I was able to surrender to the present and to a knowing that regardless of all that had happened, all was actually well. And that was a big moment for me. And so during these meditations that I constantly was doing and still do, I heard a loud and clear message from my inner guidance that said, take really good care of yourself so you are strong and all will be well. And I took this to heart and took it very seriously, and it became the compass in my life. So there I am, and I'm like, okay, what now? And my background was that I had worked for 6 years as a product manager in the steel and metals industry in France and in Montreal before my kids were born. And when they were born, I took significant time off. And I loved motherhood, but I've always been a working girl, and I crave intellectual stimulation. And so I began to conduct market studies and market development projects from my home office for my previous employer in France. And then that grew into a few additional companies. And the projects I worked on required international travel, and I love that. I love traveling, I always have. And being out in the world always gave me such a sense of joy. And I'm a linguist, I speak several languages, so just using these languages always made me feel fully alive. And I think these are clues that you should always pay attention to, these things that bring you joy, and especially what makes you feel fully alive. And so I did a project here and a project there. My goal was to satisfy my need for intellectual stimulation and also to obviously supplement the family income. So then I found myself in a situation with divorce and this intense financial stress. And my first impulse was to find a regular job, with a regular monthly income. And as I explored employment opportunities, nothing nothing I felt no enthusiasm or joy for any of the opportunities that were there. And in addition, I would have been required to long daily commutes, and that didn't interest me. My children had gone through a lot, and I wanted to take care of them, you know. So I started to think about options, and I had a vision of the kind of life that I wanted, and it involved freedom and flexibility, and then also the ability to work from home so that I could be in my children's life. So now I'm considering, you know, finding a way to continue with project work somehow. And I had received great feedback from the companies I'd worked with, so I trusted my intellectual capabilities, but transforming it all into some kind of business that would pay a future mortgage and provide my kids and I with the kind of lifestyle that I wanted for us was a little bit of a different story. So I really had to shift my mindset significantly to get there. Well, I decided to go for it, and I formed my own one-woman strategic marketing consulting firm. And so the next challenge was to start marketing my services, and that was also a little challenging because 95% of my clients were outside of Canada, clients or potential clients, because there is no specialty steel production in Canada. But I lived through many moments of doubt, and my solution is always to go within, and my inner guidance confirmed to me so strongly that I was on the right path. So I continued and signed a contract with a major European client, and from there it moved forward, and many more projects in the following years, and so on. The tragic events and the realization of my sole responsibility for everything had shifted me into this laser-focused survival mode state. And today, when I think back, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but it's like when I think back, I'm actually in awe of what I was capable of doing during this time. But I know from experience that when you're in survival mode, you pull strength and courage and resilience from places deep within you that you didn't even know existed. It doesn't have to be in these circumstances. I mean, there's all kinds of other circumstances in life when you have to find strength, and I'm sure some of you can relate. Well, we all have a masculine and we all have a feminine side, regardless of our sex. And when you go into survival mode, your inner gear has to shift into your masculine, into yang mode. And for me, to do that required me to grow a lot, stretch and grow, which is a very uncomfortable process. I could relate to what you were sharing there. And I remember during this time when I had to be so focused on in my masculine and so focused on building my business and on financial survival and all this, I felt actually quite alienated from women overall. And disconnected from myself. It was an important lesson to me about my well-being, how important it is not to neglect your feminine. And to be honest, during this time I was envious of women who could be a little fragile, a little vulnerable, and it seemed like luxury to me because I worked so hard at keeping it together. But I felt I had no choice but to be strong, and I was exhausted with strength and resilience. And when someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, you're doing so well," I actually hated hearing that because it wasn't what I really needed. And I know I'm not alone to have felt this way. I've met many women in the business world who function in this mode, and because I've been there myself, I sensed it and I empathize. Well, my feelings of envy guided me to soften, to be more open to receiving help and support, and not be so self-sufficient. And I had to learn to ask for help, which I did not find very easy. And I decided to take a sabbatical year. So I went, during that time when I rested and restored, I gained a fresh perspective, and I realized that I'd been going so fast that I hadn't even taken the time to really recognize everything I had accomplished during the last several years. And then I decided that it was time to celebrate myself, so I had my wishful life had been on a yoga teacher training course, and I decided to sign up for that. And that was very healing and a platform for me to step deeper onto my spiritual path. And that's always my kind of self-care. So then I went back to my consulting work, feeling replenished, deeply connected to myself, with a new inner calm and sense of power, ready to build my business, and now in a way more balanced way and with many more tools in my pocket. And it was from there onward that I began to see how valuable my feminine qualities were. Also in my consulting work in the specialty steel and metals industry. My highly developed intuition, my overall sensitivity to other people's emotions, understanding of energy, and ability to quickly build trust-based relationships on behalf of my clients. These were actually superpowers and majorly contributed to my success and to the high quality work that I delivered to my clients. And I think our feminine qualities so easily get pushed down and overshadowed in the business world. And I believe we need to nurture them because they're part of our feminine authenticity, and it is through them that we connect with our true power. So here I was, a single mother, a sole provider, and I asked myself how I could keep being the mother I so wanted to be to my children, with all the responsibilities I had on my shoulders. I was very much affected by my own upbringing. I had not felt particularly safe and emotionally supported in my dysfunctional family. So I was determined to do things differently, and my expectations of myself as a mother were very, very high. So I asked myself why I was working so hard and what was I working towards. And first answer that came to me was out of love for my children, because I wanted them to thrive, I wanted them to have a life with opportunities, and of course a certain financial comfort for all of us. But to be the best possible mother to my children, I also needed to be the best version of myself. And for that, I needed to honor myself and find a way forward that felt aligned and right to me. So I chose a profession and a way of working that felt exciting, meeting my mind's need for intellectual challenge and stimulation. In doing that, I honored my spirit's need to feel expansive, free, to be out in the world, feel joy. I use these words a lot. Probably you'll hear me repeat them in this presentation. But that is like feeling free and having flexibility in my life is just really important. So by honoring these needs, I gave myself deep nourishment and self-love, which again helped me find courage to deal with everything that I needed to deal with. And that again led to plenty of opportunities to explore my limits, strengths, skills, and gifts, and to successfully realizing my professional potential in the several years to come. And working this way from my home office, I created the conditions for the flexibility that I needed to live up to my expectations as a mother, which were high. And it was very important for my heart, that I took care of my children. And I did this very consciously. The flexibility I had meant that I could be there in the morning when they went to school, be there in the afternoon when they came home from school, drive them all the meetings with teachers, doctors, dentists. You know what I'm talking about. And I was freer to plan my time. I worked very intensely when I worked on a project, and then I took time off when I could, and whenever possible. And when I was often under deadline pressure, but it worked for me. Like I worked evenings long into the night sometimes. I'm not a routine 9-to-5 person, so I like to work with inspiration and passion, and I don't mind deadline pressure. So that worked for us. And my flexibility also meant that I could take a break whenever I wanted, and I did these things. Like I would look outside and go, nice day, snow is good, I'm going cross-country skiing. Or beautiful fall day, I'm going horseback riding in the forest. So I rewarded myself this way. And then I also rewarded myself with afternoon naps. So I had this flexibility and freedom with my time, and it worked for me. It energized me. It just worked. So basically, to summarize, in a nutshell, by practicing self-care at these profound levels, I was also able to take really good care of my kids. And while holding on to my vision and trusting my inner knowing, I had created my own tailor-made position as a consultant and my own tailor-made way of making a living that met my family's needs. To me, that was my purpose, and this was my measurement of success. So, being a mother, as I'm sure every mother agrees, is full-time and intense, but even more intense when you're a single mother. You do not get a break. The only way is to take a break by carving out time for yourself. And I believe this is so important. We all need a break from motherhood. And I think it's important for our children to see that we prioritize ourselves, and that it's not all about them, and especially that we don't abandon ourselves as mothers. We love our children very much, of course, but we also have to take care of ourselves. One way that I got breaks was when I traveled for work, which I did regularly. And that feeling of sitting on the plane, watching a few movies uninterrupted with a glass of wine, or lying in a hotel bed watching movies, ordering food up to the room, and and then I always, when I traveled for work, I always made sure that I did something for myself, like I'd go to a museum, or if I had a friend in the city where I was, I'd meet up, with a friend, or I'd do some sightseeing, anything for me that, again, things that brought me joy. Yes, I often felt guilty about leaving my teenagers behind when I traveled for work, and we had help, of course. And it was tough sometimes. But I collected travel points, and I made a point of always using them for fun family trips, so my kids knew that there was a reward, at the end of it all. Now, we had gone through a lot, and certainly had our shares of challenges that are part of raising teenagers. My kids definitely had to grow up a little faster than most. And as I believe all parents do, there were days when I felt far from sufficient as a mother. But I know I did my best, and more than that, you really cannot expect of yourself. I remember in the early days when I really had to work hard and push, for our financial survival and so on. My son, who was 11 at the time, he said, I want my mama back. It was such a heartbreaking moment for me. And then some years later, when he was 14, he came home. He had been to a friend, and he came home and he's like, his mom baked cookies for us. It never happened at our house. And I felt so momentarily so insufficient, not enough as a mother. And I remember saying to him, I bet you'd like to have a mom just like that. And he looked at me and he said, no, Mama, I prefer you. we do fun things, we go to interesting places. And then he said, and I already know how to do my laundry. I already know how to cook. And I know I can stand on my own feet. That's when I cried. And I recall my early days of single motherhood when I momentarily, for a few months, believed. I jumped into superwoman mode and I believed that I could do it all by myself. And I, dealing with a recent move, all the pressures, work, financial, cooking healthy meals for my kids, driving them to all the activities that they were engaged in basically every day of the week, plus what I call my sacred me time on my yoga mat. I used to go grocery shopping at 1 in the morning to a 24-hour store. And then I realized, pretty quickly that this is totally unsustainable. I had to rearrange everything. I mostly kept my sanity, but certainly had my moments when I felt like I was running out of fuel and I was running out of tools. But I kept a support network of amazing practitioners for my children and myself, such as our amazing homeopath, massage therapist, various healers, counselors, psychotherapists, acupuncturists, you name it. And all these things to me are part of, nourishing self-care that I so deeply believe in. My daughter and son are now adults in their early 30s. They are emotionally intelligent, empowered, courageous, following their chosen paths and dreams. My daughter as a investigative journalist at Wall Street Journal in London, in England, and my son as a professional artistic dancer that some of you have seen perform.
He's amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
I've seen him too.
I think so, but I'm a little biased. But if you say so, then I... Anyway, I'm very proud of who they have become. And I'm also very proud of myself. But above all, deeply, deeply grateful that the challenges in my life taught me to consistently listen deeply to myself and my inner guidance. And also, it taught me the importance of taking really good care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Because that's how I kept myself strong and in balance, and I think that's why I was able to handle it all